Hello and welcome everyone. I'm LuckyNoS7, and as Chef Brent said, I live on the other side of the pond, so I'm calling you from the UK, and it's currently 3:15 in the afternoon. I've got a long day ahead of me because this goes on until 11 PST. That means I'm up until 6 in the morning. Fantastic! So what we're here today is we're talking about how to find your niche in your career and staying relevant. So what does that mean? So let's nip over to my slides, and so we'll sort of get started, shall we? Yeah, so who, what and why? Who am I? I'm Andy Morell, LuckyNoS7, and yes, it's pronounced LuckyNoS7. It is after the film from back in 2006, which is, I believe, the year I bought my Xbox, and it happened to be my gamer tag at the time, and it stuck with me for 14 years. Wow. So what else? I am old, yes. As Chef Brent said, I've been developing for a long time, professionally for the past 16 years. I'm not past it quite yet, but well, actually, some people might say I am, especially some of my viewers who have just finished university, and some of those viewers are just starting their learning. They do come around and just go, I want to get started with programming. How do I do it? I'll get onto that in a bit. So, I am a dad. I've got a couple of kids. I spend most of my time with them when I'm not working and when I'm not streaming, which is actually not a lot of time, but also a lot of time, because I live and work from home. So that's I would hope I lived at home, but I definitely work from it as well. Sorry about that. I was just laughing at myself. Do I program with the kids? Sorry, I just saw that in chat. Yes, I do. They're only 3 and 5. They're only getting started. They've got a Raspberry Pi though. And I'm a lover of all things code. Just chuck code at me, tell me to play with a bit of tech, and I'll go and do it. So that is me. And I'm a Microsoft MVP. As of January this year, I was awarded the the MVP in developer technologies. Not the MVP. There's multiple of us. There's not just one, but a very gracious award for that one, and happy to have it. And that it's lucky flexi, Bressy. So, what are we going to try and do? I'm going to try and help you find a niche. Now, what does that mean? Well, or at least teach you that there is one to find. Keep those things in mind for a second. To remain relevant in your career. So it's helping you find, or at least know that there is something to find, to remain relevant during your career. Now, we've got what? How many years during work? What, when you finish education, 20, 21, maybe a little bit older, until your retirement age. Now, in the UK, retirement age, by the time I get there, is 68 or 69. Probably by the time I actually get there, it'll be in the 70s. So you've got a lot of work ahead of you. So that is one thing that we're going to be discussing, and why we're going to be discussing it. Sorry if anyone's not doing featured chat. I will try and add some questions in there. I have been a professional for 16 years, mainly in the .NET stack, but I've been coding for 29. Now, if I say I was 8 when I started coding, I got a Spectrum for Christmas and started coding BASIC on that. And since then, it's yeah, I just haven't had another career choice. Um, I did have other careers, so I did work in a bar, I've worked on a farm, and all that sort of stuff. But coding is technically my life, and I'm doing this because I can. Um, I'm helping myself and not just you. Me personally, I am not that great at public speaking. Me doing this is helping me. Yes, my streaming is a little bit different to my public speaking, and this is not the sort of same as how my streams normally go. For example, on Sunday, we did spend an hour before we decided what we were going to do, and this is very much a you've got a few minutes to talk. Go. So yeah, it's one of the best sort of things. So let's go back to the start and let's talk about relevancy. What is it? Well, as I said before, you've got a lot of years in your career to go, and you've got a lot of career choices to make. So you can start as a dev, you may not end up as a dev, but staying relevant is just doing what you want to do in a way. So if you want to be a developer for the rest of your life, how do you be a developer for the rest of your life? If you want to go from a developer to a development manager, how do you do that? If you want to go straight in at the deep end and go, I want to be a systems architect or a software architect or that sort of personality, or even tester and QA managers, and there is everything in tech that you can be. And we're not just talking in tech either. So, doing your job. Really? But do you go, but learning? So, to stay relevant, you're going to be learning for the rest of your life. If you're just doing your job, are you staying relevant? Because technology, especially now, moves quickly, very, very quickly. Yesterday I did something. Today it's out of date, and it's as out of date. It's as out of date. It's out. It's out as date. It's out of date as soon as you've committed it to GitHub. That is basically the philosophy you've got to think of. So when you come back in 10 years and look at your code and you go, what was I thinking? You did it perfectly back then. It's just now things have changed. Or there's a bug in it. Probably a bug. Going beyond your role. So you're a developer. How do you, if you want to progress, you've got to go beyond that role. How do you go beyond that role? How do you go take those next steps? And just one example is teaching. Now, I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's something that Robert Tables and Clarkio had a big stream about a month, maybe 2 months ago now. Timing at the moment has sort of compressed and everything's just sort of, how long have we been inside? But their stream was on what makes a senior developer. And I think that is one of the things that does. If you've got junior devs that work with you, beside you, that aren't as experienced as you, teach them. And I'll get back to the point on that one, that when you are teaching them, you're learning, you're improving, you're staying relevant by teaching the new generation. And being a really useful engine. That one sort of snuck in there because, like, last week I was watching Thomas with the kids. So there he is. And when you say being a really useful engine, what does that actually mean? I mean, in the show, Thomas, he's a steam engine. Is that as relevant as he is now? Not as much, but he's still relevant. He still transports passengers from A to B. And during day-to-day life, he does his job. And there's many stories of Thomas that an engine doesn't do their job for a day and stuff just falls apart. I think one of the ones was one of the diesel engines that works at the tip didn't collect rubbish for a day, and everything just went a bit rubbish. So yeah, that's the sort of thing where that is something you've got to think about, and you've got to do, and you've got to know about. So, what are we actually down here today to talk about? The answer is, unfortunately, me. We're going to talk about me for hopefully the next 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm going to have to answer quite a few questions from you lot. But definitely keep them coming. So why are we talking about me? Well, I'm using myself as a case study of how I used to be versus how I am now. I've said it before, I've been a professional for 16 years. This year, 2020, I became a Microsoft MVP. I am producing this conference. I have created featured chat and another few things. So what's next? Where do I go from there? From where I was 16 years ago to now and the future? Because I've got sorry, I've got a few years left of my career. Technically, if I don't retire early, around about 30 to 33 years. So basically, I passed the midway point last year. So it seems mental, but everything up to now, I've got to do again. I've got more years. I've got lots more learning to do, and I hope I can pack it in there, because I'll tell you what, it's getting full. It's like Stack Overflow exceptions all over the place. So so where do we start? The first years of my career, doing my job. That's exactly what I was doing. I was doing my job. I got my first development job 2004, and I did my job. I did what was needed. That was it. Just what was needed. I stayed quiet and got on with it. And I was a coder, not a developer. And I'll get to that. So when I was doing my job, I was producing code, I was testing it, releasing it, and it was working. I was doing exactly what my managers asked of me. I was not asking too many questions at the time, so I asked a few questions like onboarding stuff, and again, Google has been around quite a few years, so Google was a good teacher back then. There was nothing like Twitch. There was nothing like YouTube. Debatable. It was still very, 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 very new in the eyes of most people. Facebook, yeah, ish. That sort of started as I left university, I think. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. 16 years. Always forget stuff. Um, and this is the one thing that my line manager at the time said to me. He goes, "You're a great coder. You're not a developer yet." And taking that to mind, this is a completely whole subject for maybe another day. What makes a developer over just a coder? And I say just a coder. Now, when you're a coder, you can write code and it works and it gets released and that's it. When you're a developer, you think about why. You think about what you're doing with it. You think about other parts of that code, like scale, for example, is one thing. That's just one simple aspect, is scale. You have to know where the best techniques and the best methodologies and the best way of doing things at that time. So back in 2004, 2005, you know what your knowledge is and what everyone else's knowledge is around you. Well, you can find that out by asking them, but you can't see what future techniques and future principles you would bring. You can guess, and you've got to be a smart person to be able to guess, or make it up yourself. But that's where the aspect of a developer comes in. You research why you're doing things. You research why you're putting that bit of code there and why this one piece of code might be slightly faster than another. So that happened for about, I would say, a good 11 years. And you're thinking, but surely you weren't just doing that one thing for 11 years. And no, I wasn't. In those first 11 years, so up until 2015, that's the one, I switched job 3 times? Yes. So I had my first major position. Then I went to, which was at a training provider, or a personnel management provider, who did surveys on personality tests, basically, but business personality tests. So, say for example, you went for a position at DHL, which is a big package firm. They would ask you a series of questions. You tick loads of boxes, and it tells them your personality. So, like, you're good at managerial, but you're not so good at listening, but you're really good at something else. And that's what I did for a living for 2 years. And that's where my line manager at the time said, "You're not a coder. You're a coder, not quite a dev." So spent a couple of the years there, moved up the chain and sort of got that whole personality, became as much of a developer as I thought I should be. I moved on to the next position, which was the College of Law, which is now the University of Law, and did some development for them from 2008 to 2012. From 2012, I then went to work for an insurance company. 3 years there, then moved to another company. And then I was there for a while. While I was at that company, that's when things changed. But every step along the way, I was being a developer. I wasn't progressing. I wasn't going into that senior role. I wasn't going into that teaching and mentoring. I wasn't going into the research. I wasn't going into sort of extra learning. I was going on training courses. I was going on coding courses for new .NET technologies and doing like refresher courses in C# and the next stages on. But I wasn't taking that extra step. I wasn't making that leap. So, what exactly happened? Well, a few life changes happened personally, and I won't go into those today. But outside of work, I took up streaming. I did my first Twitch stream in 2010. It was September, and Halo Reach got released. Yes, that was more than 5 years ago. That is when I made my Twitch account. I got Halo Reach 2 days early, started playing it online, and also streamed it. It was amazing. That was the end of my streaming career. At that time, I did it for about 3 days, then didn't stream again for 7 years. I say the slide says 5 years, but I only took up streaming 3 years ago. There was a 2-year thing that happened, but that's something else again. But the last 5 years, everything changed. TwitchLib. Whoops, sorry about that. TwitchLib. TwitchLib is a C# library for the Twitch API, Twitch chat, Twitch PubSub, and also Twitch extensions. I went into coding a bit of that, and the reason I went into coding a bit of that was because my streaming had developed into coding streams. So I took up streaming in Feb 2017, and a couple of months later, Revlo at the time said, we're shutting down. We can't afford to keep running. And that was the bot system that I was currently using. So I thought, why not make my own? And then I thought, why not stream me making my own? So I did. But TwitchLib was the C# library of the time. I started contributing to it, and now I'm one of the major contributors of it. I do have to get back to it because I haven't touched it for a couple of years, actually a year and a half. But that's another story for another day. Then we have Twitch Dev. I somehow managed to get the attention of John Balava, who is the developer relations person at the time for Twitch Dev, and he's been amazing. He was awesome, and he said, "I just watched the VOD of your extension building stream. Contact me if you've got any other ideas." So I went back to him with an idea, and we built an extension. Yes, Twitch again. There's a lot of Twitch stuff going on in my life. So we built this Twitch extension in April 2018. This was a year later. And what we did was I did a speed run. I built an extension live on stream in under 3 hours. It was an associated stream, so it was on my channel. But the Twitch guys, Twitch Dev folks came along and said hi and did all the sort of sub-bombed me, which was crazy. It was an awesome stream, and we did it. We built that extension. It's released and it's out there in the wild. It's called Viewer Information if you ever go and see it. And then I built another one, and then I took over another one. And in 2018, July, Twitch said, "Do you want to come and speak at our developer day at TwitchCon?" So I said yes, did that. That was fantastic, amazing. Apparently my next slide says lists. I don't think that's meant to be there. Whoops. Although I can list a lot of things. Since then I'm now one of the administrators on the Twitch Dev Discord, and my career and everything else has taken a massive shift. Also, learning. In those last 5 years, I have learnt exponentially more than I did in the first 10 to 11 years. The reason being, viewers, other people creating things like TwitchLib or contributing to things like TwitchLib, they have been absolutely invaluable to my learning and my career. Has been that crazy. So where do we sort of go? Re-education. I have re-educated myself. I found my niche. My niche is learn while doing. But my learning while doing has included teach while doing at the same time. Whoa! Why am I getting audio back on myself? Sorry, I just had an echo. So, sorry about that. And that whole niche is like my new way of thinking. So when people come to me and say, how do I start up in programming? And you go, learn some principles, start doing. It doesn't matter what language you pick. In my opinion, it really doesn't. Just learn what sat behind that language, and all languages have the same principles, almost. It's like, don't repeat code as much as possible. It's like massive. It's like, separate your concerns. So it's these solid principles and the rest principles and everything like that. Just and that's where it came from, and that's my niche. My niche is learning while teaching, but I learn and teach on Twitch. So come along and say hi. It's just like, why not? So what happens now? I own my own company. Last year, I started my own company, and I got the lovely folks at Twitch went, do you want to do a contract for us? Do you want to create something for us? And I was like, yeah. What is it? And they went, featured chat. Believe it or not, featured chat was not called featured chat until I named it. But that has been absolutely crazy. Microsoft MVP, we've mentioned it before. That is one massive thing that I never thought I would ever do. I'm public speaker, getting there. Need to learn a bit more about that one. Conference organizer. We'll see how today goes, and I am still learning. I think that's the whole thing, is what next, and what do you do in the future? Well, you teach, or I will be teaching. I will still be learning. I will be searching for that next thing to do. And I want to educate myself and others. I don't know why. I don't know why I want to educate others. Over the last 5 years, my career has taken an interesting turn. It's very how do I put it? How do I put it best? And actually, my life has changed dramatically, and I mean dramatically. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I lived in a different house. which sounds nuts that we were moving house in this whole time, but it was to be closer to my daughter, who lives just down the road now, like literally just round the corner. And I've got kid in this house, kid in another house. My wife's sat next door, probably listening through the door. And with that change came everything you see before you. There's me, there's the live coders, there's my channel, LuckyNoS7evin, and I think everyone has their niche. Everyone should understand that there is a niche for you to learn, continue to learn, and stay relevant in your career. Now, I hope at least a few of you get something out of that one, because I know there's at least one in chat called Pro Sam, who's just finished his university degree, and hopefully he's out there in the wild, learning how to develop in the real world. So thank you very much, everyone, and thanks for listening. So, do we have any questions? I see a few. Here we go. C# Fritz says, told not simple. Andy typically works from home. That is actually very correct. I typically work from home, but at times you can find me in the pub, in a local cafe, or a hotel lobby. I haven't tried working in the park yet because of the Wi-Fi signal. I am most definitely an advocate for remote working. You can work wherever your technology allows. So with being a developer, it's very, very easy in 2020 to work pretty much anywhere with an internet connection. And if you don't have an internet connection, I'm sorry, you can still get on with your work. Just about. Wi-Fi speaker. Yeah. No, this is the Live Coders channel. Sorry about that. Large companies like Amazon, Google, and sorry, I will actually put that one up on the screen. Sorry about that. They don't all use Java now. They do. Any language, some languages have their old school ways of thinking. I'm just looking. The stream's correct, isn't it? Why have we not got featured chat on? Have we got featured chat on, everyone? We have not got featured chat on. Sorry, give me a second. I did not know we had that. Sorry, everyone. I missed it off one scene. It happened to be mine. No, I think there's every language has its own system. Every language has its own technical background, and every language has been used in the past. Some languages, for example, C# and Java, do have bad names at times. C# is getting better, and .NET especially, seeing as though it's now cross-platform. And it's getting easier to use across multiple platforms. Where do I work? I own my own business, so technically I work for myself and I work from home. One of my current clients is Twitch, building featured chat and some stuff that I can't talk about. How do you start? Or how do you recommend starting to learn to code? Look at if what I recommend is go away and read articles or systems on principles of coding. Pick a language, anyone, and go nuts. Java, C Sharp with the .NET stuff, Java as well, Go, Python. I can list quite a few more, but just go nuts, go wild, and just learn from those. To be a developer these days, you've got to be able to switch between languages at times, unless you became a full system expert in your particular language. Sorry, I've just got to take a drink. And also, watch the live coders. We have plenty of opinionated people. I mean, we have plenty of opinions which may or may not be valid. Sorry about that. So hang on, let me pick another question. Would you, right, okay, so regarding learning, would you rather learn one code in more depth or learn a new language regarding staying relevant in 10 to 15 years? It depends what happens in those 10 to 15 years. So, for example, since I started, JavaScript has come a long way. Now, I've stuck with C Sharp and .NET because that's what I know, and I know those inside out. Now, the good thing is with .NET at the moment is they're transforming from their old school way of thinking into a new school, and their new school is pretty good. But also JavaScript sits alongside that, and you have got Node, and it is developing, and it is going forward. You've got all the JavaScript front-end frameworks, which are fantastically useful. I use Vue personally because that's just the one I like and get on with. And that is literally just personal opinion. So you can't predict what happens in 15 years, but definitely look at trends while you are learning. Definitely featured chat it. If I may ask, how old were you when you got your first coding job? My first paid bit of code was when I was 13. But it was a website for a local engineering company. I just built it and away it went. If you have used it, do you find TypeScript useful? I have used it. So in my previous position, I used React, and React and TypeScript work well. I'm not a fan of, personally, I'm not a fan of TSX and JSX and mixing JavaScript and HTML into the same block of code. It just, my mind screams at me when I do it. But that is me personally. So but then with TypeScript itself, I find it useful for things. Well, TypeScript is just awesome as a transpilation compilation thing because you know then can have that object bound system. It's good. It's not like out of nowhere, and it gives you those nice little errors rather than having to run it, find out that you've actually made a mistake down the line. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you've enjoyed that little babbling on. So hang on, right? We got Surly Dev. Surly Dev. So lucky number 11. If you are controlling the scenes and pulling this all together, and you are starting it by inserting the Thomas the Tank Engine reference, does that make you the fat controller? Yes. Yes. I didn't quite go as bald as the Fat Controller, and I don't have a waistcoat for today. Sorry. Uh, so we got Sam is watching. I'm a beginner. Any suggestion on how I go about coding? My aim is to get advanced in that and not just basic knowledge. Um, as I said at the sort of start of my talk, being a coder is not a developer. So if you want to be a coder, fine. I recommend is pick a language, but also learn the principles. If you know the principles, then the language is going to come fairly easily. Google and Stack Overflow and all those other developer resources are out there. And again, so the live coders as a team. So please, just go nuts, and I wish you all the luck in best of luck in whatever you end up doing. Right. I think this is going to be the last one. Let's have a look if we've got any more from chat that come up. I haven't seen so far. Sorry, I'll just pick this one. Sorry, Spenzo, I will put yours back in a second. But I've just seen this one from Ardelis. Check out courses on solid refactoring design patterns. Yes, do that. That's why I'm sort of talking about the principles of code. Solid is definitely one of them. I would design patterns, things like object-oriented design and all that sort of lovely stuff. So Spenzo, Mr. Lucky, I did a coding bootcamp because I like making stuff, but got somewhat turned off. Also happened to be the zenith of my mental health. Okay. I'm not. I am torn between dev, product management, and design. I really enjoy the front end, user facing stuff, and I just want to make beautiful, useful design products. Any advice? Um, design definitely sounds like your thing, but also front end developer, and maybe having a mix of that. Um, did the was the dev part mainly a back end type role course that you did, or was it mainly a front end? Because there is quite a chunk of development that goes on in the front end these days, and we do I do personally start pushing a lot more stuff client side, because Chrome just takes up all that memory, so you might as well use it. Um, so I hope that makes sense. But definitely, from the way you said beautiful, you just want to make beautiful stuff. Definitely a design front on that one. If you can move into that development and maybe even sort of a designer that even builds the HTML template and the CSS type designer, then perfect. There are sites similar, like Figma, for example, where you design it and it gives you some nice CSS for that. Not perfect, and definitely not just copy and paste into a browser and say, "Yay, I'm done." That is not the way Figma works, but definitely something like that. Brian, did I actually get hold of that one? No, I didn't. Brian Laganus said, want to consider a job in product owner. The responsibilities of the product owner span dev, management, and design to drive success. Yes, very true, but you're not very hands-on at that point. So it depends if you want a more managerial role over design, dev, and management. Well, Yeah, no, but product owner, product manager, and product owner are different things. I'm not confusing that, but product owner does have a lot more of a managerial. I want this in my product, but to have designers, you do have designers. A product owner is not a designer. English can be hard. You're right. Anyway, I think that is my time up. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you everyone for listening.